that, even if it would tear the nation apart from top to bottom, if you have such cynicism that they can kill the president and stuff it down the public's throat to cover up and go on about their lives, then we need to tear the society apart from top to bottom and shake it apart and get some sense of law and order. What reality of order can there be in a society that is that cynical?
You know what? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, John.
Well, I said that, and he did not disagree with me. He's certainly working now to get an investigation. But if someone like him would clearly understand their thinking back then, well, it's truly gruesome, but the nation just wouldn't be ready to deal with a cover-up that kills our president. Better to pull together and keep, nationalism going and everything. Wow.
I think every time I see the big dogs say something like that, I saw it during Watergate, etc. Oh, it'll tear this country apart if we have an investigation on. What they're really saying is that the American people would find out too much about how the American political and economic system really work and who controls it and how and who benefits. And if this window were to open up and people were to see the way things really would happen, they would be quite angry. So in the Kennedy case, they would see how the CIA was operating, as Lyndon Johnson later said, a damn murder incorporated in Latin America. They would see the relationships between the establishment people and the mob and organized crime and drugs. And they would see all of these unsavory things which the American people are not aware of. And if there were a true investigation of this, these things would come out, and they might lose control.
If there had been a true investigation of the Kennedy killing, George Bush's policies today would be different, if he would be in office, in fact. His double-sided cover story about a war on drugs, while his own personal and his own staff's involvement with major drug dealers, he, of course, blithely ignores, and the major media blithely ignores, even though they have previously published these things. They've now agreed it's okay. What's happening there, one can surmise, is a carryover to the Kennedy assassination. This is the Mafia, after all, or forms of it, that are smuggling the drugs, and you really are never going to go after them. You don't want to get yourself bumped off. It's much better to play ball and all the balances take place, and that way you don't get yourself assassinated.
In fact, there's even a more sinister aspect to this cover-up than we've gone into so far, and that is the amount of people that were killed or mysteriously died who were either involved in the conspiracy or had evidence and testimony that went against the lone assassin theory. Gary, when did the mysterious deaths, so to speak, begin with the cover-up? When did witnesses begin dying, let us say, under mysterious circumstances? And how broad did this mysterious death?
Well, I think it'd probably have to start with Lee Oswald in the basement of the Dallas Police Department.
Yes,
and it goes from there. It started immediately, and it continues even today. There's no way to put a number figure to it, but you can, let's just take two or three. George de Mohrenschildt, who was Oswald's best friend in Dallas, a very influential Russian immigrant and a very smart, intelligent man, befriended the Oswalds. He had French intelligence connections dating back into World War II. Did some very strange things, had some strange connections to some very high-ranking people. In fact, was in a intelligence agency headquarters in mid-1963 with a colonel and a man from down in Haiti, one of the very important bankers down there. But that's a story, a different story. 3 hours before he was to talk to a Senate investigator looking into the Kennedy assassination, he had already made contact with him, set up the apartment. He takes a shotgun, puts it in his mouth, and blows his brains out. That's what we're told, and I'm supposing that that's what happened. But the key is it was because of the Kennedy assassination. Sam Giancana was one of these with Operation Mongoose, one of the organized crime figures who had already was telling the Senate and was being called before them one more time. And late in the night, he is shot in the basement of his home as he's fixing a breakfast, obviously for himself and whoever this friend, quote unquote, is that's there with him, who shoots him once in the back, and then I understand shoots him 7 times in the mouth as he lays there dying, meaning
just to make his point.
Giancana's associate in this operation, Mongoose, which was the Castro assassination attempts, was a fellow by the name of John Roselli. You people have heard this story, but it's very important. He's been talking about all of the things surrounding the Castro attempts and the John Kennedy assassination, and suddenly he ends up floating up out of Key Biscayne, Florida, in a 55-gallon drum. He's been cut to pieces and stuffed into it and left there for dead. This goes on and on and on. There are eyewitnesses in Dealey Plaza to Ruby associates and friends to organized crime figures to high CIA people.
How many?
Oh, I have no idea. It's it's been calculated by some to be in the 40s and 50s, and by some on up in past 100. I don't think you can actually say.
The High Treason book is useful. This book, High Treason, by Robert Groden, Harrison Livingston, they list 49 people as I count them. They don't have them numbered, but I went down and numbered. If I didn't miss one, it was 49 by name, explaining what their association with the killing, what they knew, and the timing of their killing. And then they mention a couple places of 7 here and 7 there that also were killed without naming them. These 49 killings, as they describe them, they're imaginative, all kinds of deaths, some of them apparently suicides, some of them improbable suicides, car crashes, shootings, bludgeonings, you name it. They could be done by anyone. I see a lot of mob involvement, but this is frankly because I know so much about the Jack Ruby's involvement in the killing and other mob figures in and around the killing. And so you know the mob was there, and then you think of these things, yeah, that sounds like the mob might very well have done that. If it had been a killing in a situation where there was no engineered by people like the CIA's OP Mongoose people or people working out of the Pentagon, there's nothing special about it. It's just different ways you can knock people off, trying to keep it, well, I say trying to keep it from being too flagrant, but lots of them are very flagrant. Getting onto these books, we've got so many and such good ones coming out now, and it makes it, in 1980, reading Anthony Summers' book, clearly you could only conclude from that there was a conspiracy.
What was the name of that book?
Conspiracy.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
His book, Conspiracy. And but he pulls his punches, sort of, or he pulls up at the end. He won't deal with the killed witnesses, and he won't deal really with projecting as to who might have done the conspiracy, who was responsible for it, and under what circumstances. Now, there were some books out then. Gary's book, Cover Up, did deal with, who might have done it, with the conspiracy, and the conspiracy and the killing and the cover-up. We had a kind of a dearth for a while, books coming out. There have been lots of books on the assassination, I'm sure, but major books coming out. Recently, we've had several come out that
12,000 really books on the JFK assassination have been published.
And just to mention these for the benefit of the viewers, there's the book Best Evidence by David Lifton. And this one doesn't reach any conclusions, but it just goes meticulously over the evidence, showing all the discrepancies in the Warren Commission's presentation